Welcome to the Excuse Smashers podcast.
Hey, this is Tim Kaufman. Thank you so much for joining me as I talk to some of the most amazing people on the planet about excuses and why they didn't let excuses hold them back from a plant-based lifestyle. So sit down, buckle up, and hang on as my guests show you how to
Smash excuses.
Okay, I am so excited. We get the privilege to talk to my good friend Anthony Masiello. And Anthony, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me, Tim. I'm excited.
Yeah, and I really like this excuse that we're going to smash today because I hear this all the time. And not only do I hear the excuse, this is one of the few excuses that I actually get to see in action working all the time. And I saw it in my family for years. So before we smash the excuse, we always take about 5 minutes. If you could just answer the question, how has this plant-based way of eating affected your life?
So it completely changed my life. I basically have a new life because I switched to a plant-based diet. And I grew up heavy my whole life. Fast forward to the time I was starting a family. I'm married. I have a house, a career, starting a family, and I got a letter from a life insurance company that said they denied me a 20-year term life insurance policy. And I kind of took it as a death sentence, like that they didn't expect me to live for another 20 years. So it was hard. And the biggest thing that really did was it helped me to take a careful look at my life and really to do an objective assessment. Okay, where was I today? So, and it didn't look good. So I searched and searched and searched. I found the plant-based whole foods diet. This was in very early 2006. And I switched. I switched aggressive. I would say I transitioned. I didn't go overnight, but I transitioned very aggressively over a few month period. And I was losing about 8 pounds a month for a total of 20 months. So I lost 160 pounds in 20 months.
Wow.
And in that time, my life became completely different. Growing up, I had never played organized sports. I was relatively active. I would skateboard, snowboard, ride my bicycle, things like that. But as I lost all this weight, going from 360 pounds down to 200 pounds. So as this was happening, as the weight was literally falling off, I just had more energy than I knew what to do with. And I decided that I wanted to start exercising. So about halfway through that process, I also started running. It really picked up very quickly for me. I transitioned from a sedentary couch potato to a runner in almost as much time, in that period of time as well. So I really went from an unhealthy, sedentary person who, really looking back, was probably depressed a lot of the time, uncomfortable most of the time, physically and emotionally uncomfortable most of the time, feeling like I didn't deserve some of the things I had. I didn't deserve my wife, my family, some of these things, to really switching around to someone who was just really excited about life and wanting to do things in life and wanting to wake up earlier in the morning so that I could go out and run and enjoy this body that I have and this thing that I created for myself.
That's awesome. So what was your weight loss again?
So I ended up losing a total of 160 pounds. I was medicated for high blood pressure for years. Mm-hmm. I got off all of my medications. I stopped having migraine headaches. I was diagnosed with sleep apnea, but I never got the system to treat it. But anyway, that all disappeared. So I really my cholesterol dropped, everything. All these things, whenever I would go to the doctor and they would do a blood test, I had all these things were either in the danger zone or in the borderline in the danger zone. And they really all went to being ideal within this period. They actually went much quicker than the weight loss. Mm-hmm. All of those things cleaned up even before the weight loss finished. But then the weight loss just stopped, and that was it. And now I think the weight loss stopped over 10 years ago now. Right. And I've been within 10 pounds, 5 to 10 pounds of that weight ever since for 10 years. And that's completely foreign to me. I mean, my whole life, I just had been steadily gaining weight.
Right.
I would lose weight for a little while. I would go shopping, I would get new clothes, I would get excited, then those clothes would stop fitting. I'd go back to my old clothes, or I'd have to go buy more big clothes.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I literally had the same clothes now for 10 years, and it bothers my wife. She's like, "Why don't you ever get any new clothes?"
So, okay, so you have the weight loss, and then you have the metabolic numbers. What about, like, as far as you know, emotionally or even energy wise? Like, what does that look like? What's different about that?
So energy, I mean, I physically, I have the energy to do anything that I want. Emotionally, and mentally, the biggest thing for me is the self-confidence that I have.
Mm.
When we moved into our house and we went to go meet our neighbors, I wouldn't go without my wife because I just thought at 6'4", 360 pounds, if I was looking a little scruffy that day, that I wasn't the kind of person who would want to just go unannounced and knock on someone's door,
Right.
because I had this self-conscious feelings that I looked threatening, or that I looked, to not the kind of person that you would just want to welcome when you open the door.
Right.
So I thought if I bring my 5'1" normal weight wife with me and she stands in front of me, that it just makes it makes it seem less intimidating or something. Anyway, I had no confidence to do these things on my own. I didn't have confidence to try new things. I didn't really have confidence to really present myself in a way that I would expect people to listen to me, or kind of almost respect me or appreciate my conversation, because I didn't feel great about myself.
Right. Okay, that's awesome, and congratulations on all that stuff. That's really crazy awesome.
Thank you.
So this, as you know, is Excuse Smashers, and we are here to smash an excuse. So I have heard this a million times. I've seen it a million times. And I get it because this is a very valid and legit excuse, and most of these that we have on the show aren't really valid, but this is a very valid one, because I lived with this and I watched this my whole life. So I have heard this so many times. So I would totally go plant-based, but every diet I've ever been on, I lose the weight, I go without, and then I gain the weight back, and most of the time I gain it back and some change. And it's this cycle. So you know what? It's just easier not to go on that yo-yo thing. My doctor even told me it's not good to lose weight and gain it. So I'm gonna just pass on the whole plant-based thing because I've yo-yo dieted my whole life. So my first question for you is, why did I ask you to smash this? And you kind of gave us a little hint already.
I would say you've asked me because I've been sustaining this for so long. Like I said, I switched over 12 years ago. My weight has been, for all practical purposes, level now for over 10 years, and I haven't had any problem at all staying on a plant-based diet.
That is amazing, and it's super awesome. And the truth is, you're a very small statistic. And this is a big problem, I think. So what we're gonna do is take the next few minutes, and I would love to know. And I know it's been so long for you, over a decade, that I'm sure things have changed from when you first started this until now. And maybe you can even put the spin on it, because I know you do a lot of work for the plant-based community. I super appreciate that. And you're working with people now, so maybe you can even give examples for the people that you work with. But how has this excuse challenged you, and can you give us some real life examples of it?
Well, it is, and it's sad to me that I'm kind of a minority in this. That I don't mean in the plant-based world, but I mean generally in the diet world. When people recover their health, because I know how good people feel when they lose their weight, and then I also know how bad people feel mentally and physically when it comes back. So that's a bummer. That's a real bummer for me. For me, a plant-based diet has been very different. It really is. I mean, I know you don't call it a plant-based diet. You call it a plant-based lifestyle, because that's what it is. It really does change you. But the difference I feel in a restriction diet, or counting calories, or doing something temporary and expecting some kind of permanent result, which, when I say it like that, it sounds as absurd as we can really expect it to be, is that this is truly the way that I believe we're supposed to be eating. So when you switch to this, it's actually something that's more natural for your body, and you don't just lose the weight, you also fix your health, and
Mhm.
things happen in your mind. It's almost impossible to explain to someone who hasn't experienced it. I think that you can understand. You just become much sharper, much more aware, and I think that that's a big part of being able to stick to it, because you feel mentally and physically so good.
And what about count? Are you counting anything for the past 10 years? Because I know that's a big nightmare. I watched Heather deal with that, like constantly measuring and counting.
Yeah, no, I just eat. It's really great. So, during my 20-month transformation, I got to the point where I was literally was just, I mean, my go-to meal, I've said this times, is beans and greens. And I don't measure my beans, I don't measure my greens, but I just eat that. And sometimes that's a salad with beans on top. Sometimes it's cooked greens with almost like a stew or a bean soup or something like that. It looks different all the time, but basically I just eat foods that I know keep me on track. And you mentioned something before, how different it is now than it was when I started. And I do think that it's important to be just as careful today when we do have products and these other things out there
Right.
than it was for me to be just as careful back before these products existed, because not all of these products are 100% on track and are really going to get you the results that you're looking for. I still feel like the best place to shop is in the produce section.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you're safe. You're not going to measure. You're not going to count. You're just going to eat foods that you learn to enjoy.
And you
And
don't have to read labels, right?
exactly. Yeah.
So we chatted a little bit before. You talked about when you go out go out to eat with a client or whatever. What does that look like?
So it is. And what are the challenges that I face today? So the challenges I face today are completely different from the challenges that I face, or that someone faces when they're just learning to switch, or that I faced during the first 2 or 3 years.
Mm.
Those challenges were, how do I go out to eat in a restaurant? What do I do if I'm on the road? What if I do if I don't have food? Those are the kind of challenges that you get. Now, I'm very happy to say I don't have any of those anymore.
Okay.
I can go anywhere. I don't carry food with me. I don't prepare ahead of time. I'm perfectly comfortable missing a meal, missing 2 meals if I have to, or finding just finding some produce and eating, a few apples, some fruit. That part's easy. But what is tricky for me now is if I'm out in a social situation, if I'm at a party or if I'm at a dinner or something like that with people who I don't know. And if I have to order at a restaurant and they hear me say, I would like the large dinner-sized salad as an appetizer, but with no dressing and no cheese, and then people just start slowly looking at me. And then, I'll get a side of steamed spinach and, a side of whatever else that they have on the menu, and I'll use that as my main dish. And people look at me like I'm crazy, especially if we're at some restaurant that's, a theme, whether it's an Italian restaurant or a steakhouse or whatever it ends up being.
Mm-hmm.
And they ask me why I'm doing this. And there's no easy answer. When I was overweight and I was losing weight, I could tell people, oh, I'm losing weight, I'm trying to lose weight, and this is what I'm going to do. And it kind of stops the conversation.
Right.
But now these people, even if they've known me for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, they've always known me as a healthy weight
Right.
person. And they're like, why are you eating like that? And especially if they're a little bit overweight themselves,
Yeah.
like I have to navigate this conversation. I mean, I've gotten better at it now. I'm like, well, I used to have a lot of health problems. I used to be very big, but I have to really go back and explain it. And then I'm like, and it was 10 years ago. They're like, but I've known you for a long time. I'm like, well, it was a long time ago, but they don't really, people don't really support me in that. Think I'm ridiculous, which I'm also very fine with.
Yeah. So in the last part here, if you wouldn't mind, if you could give us some tools, and the tools could be like, even you could even base this on people that you work with. How do you overcome that wall that says whatever I lose on a plant-based diet is going to come back. Give us some tools, even if they're mentally the mindset that she has to shift.
So I mean, the thing is that the future is an idea, okay? The future, we don't know how long that is. You know, people worry about, am I going to have to do this forever? You know, how am I going to never have whatever again, right? So I think that you've already smashed that one several times. It's because it's not about what you're giving up. It's about what we're gaining, right? Like if somebody says, how am I never going to have a piece of cake again in my life? I'm like, how was I never going to be able to fit in an armchair for the rest of my life?
Right,
you know,
right.
so that balances out. But the thing is that people get so psyched out worrying about what's going to happen next that they lose track of what they're doing right now. So what I try to tell people is just do it one day at a time. Say, okay, I'm going to stay here. You know, I'm going to eat my plant-based diet. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to worry about it coming back, because if I focus on today and if I make my choices for today, then it doesn't come back. You know, I don't have to worry about the future or what might happen again down the road, because we don't know. We don't know if we've got 10 minutes or we don't know if we've got 50 years. You know, it's just, I don't feel like it's worth obsessing. So it's hard for people to understand, but I really don't want people. I mean, on one hand, we talk about health as being an investment. You know, we do these things now, we make these changes now so that we can be healthy down the road. But at the same time, if you get too caught up, it's a tricky balance. If you get too caught up on planning for the future, so you're never enjoying yourself now, then I think that kind of misses the point as well.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I don't know if that specifically answered your question. So as far as what can I do to advise people, I would just say stay in the present. Do what you need to do today. Don't worry too far down the road, and really just concentrate on taking care of yourself and let time deal with the rest. You know, figure out how you're going to deal with that social situation when you get to it.
Right.
But really stay hard and steady on your path, because the yo-yoing comes in with temptations, things that bring us back to our old ways. Things that bring us back and forth between our new ways and our old ways. And if you let yourself be swayed, then I think you basically stay in that slippery part of the slope,
right,
where at a point in time you could fall back. But if you go hard and fast and you just stay where you want to be, if you stay on a purely plant-based diet, living this lifestyle, then it's easy street. It really is.
Yeah, and so I know you're like the master at the mindset thing. So as long as we're talking, I know for me, a lot of the things that would kick me out of it is this idea of a reward. So can you just like take 30 seconds and talk about how that whole reward thing works? Because I know that's a big part of yo-yoing too.
Yeah, and so I still reward myself, and it's never ever with food. And I reward my children, and it's never ever with food. It's with experience. It's with doing things that I've always wanted to do. It's with doing things that I've never been able to do before. Mm-hmm. And that's what we do for a reward. Even when my kids get a good report card, you know, we're not getting them, you know, something that they want to eat that's bad for them. You know, we just don't reward with food, and that's the best thing I've found to do. Like it's sad to me when someone says, "Oh, I lost this much weight. Now I'm going to treat myself to a cheat day or something like that," because that screws up your mind.
Yeah,
it
for sure.
messes you up pretty bad. It's like, you know, my favorite analogy for this one is if you're training a pet or a dog to not eat from the kitchen table, right? So you do all this work to keep the dog away from the table during mealtime, and the dog becomes fine. The dog is at peace with that. Okay, I don't eat from the table. And then once in a while you throw it a scrap. The dog is confused as could be, right? Yeah. So we need to treat ourselves with the same respect. Just be steady. Like, don't be afraid to make a couple hard rules and then live within them. And it might be tricky once, it might be tricky twice to get over that, but once you're over that, it's easy as can be.
Yeah, and I think it happens a lot faster than we think. I think we get psyched out how long, you know, it becomes a habit, but it really doesn't take that long, and I don't think it's a linear progression. I mean, it starts out really, really hard, and halfway through it gets much easier, and then when you get towards the end, it's not hard at all, and then before you know it, it's a habit. And so I think
Exactly.
that's cool.
Exactly right. So give yourself a chance to build those
Yeah.
habits, and those habits keep you on easy street. Exactly like you said.
So it sounds like from like day one till now, some of your main points are, and we talk basically almost every time I have somebody on. Preparation is key, and it was for you in the beginning, and it was for me as well in the beginning, and it's maybe not so much anymore. The other thing I think is like being able to communicate why you do what you do when you're in a social situation, and that makes sense too. And then switching the mindset, and I think by focusing, in the moment right now, in the present, really there's something a little bit more happening there, because I feel like the yo-yo diet, like you get to the point where you can't hold on anymore, and then you blow it a little bit, and then it's like, all right, I'm gonna start tomorrow, so I'm going all in, and I'm gonna finish the 1 pound bag of candy, and then it reinforces this failure, right, over and
Yep.
over. Where if you focus in the moment, just one plate of food, it's a win and it's a victory. And if you had a victory yesterday, you can have another one today, and all those like mini victories add up to a positive outlook that you're doing something good, instead of the other way, and it kind of builds.
Yeah.
So that's all like super super good stuff. I like it a super lot.
Exactly. And if I could just add one more thing, when thinking out really long term, there really is no finish line. We're not. I'm not looking to get to the end of my life,
Right.
right? So I wouldn't say to plan to, oh, when I lose 30 pounds, I'm done. When I lose 50 pounds, I'm done. We don't know what done looks like. I never knew I was going to lose 160 pounds.
Right.
It didn't matter to me at that point how much weight I lost. And I still, to this day, I don't feel like I'm done or I've started or I'm doing everything. I'm just living this life.
Yeah.
And with that, because that mental feeling of getting to the finish line means now you can do something different.
Right.
So this is just how I live my life. It's just that easy.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's all good stuff. Can you think of like anything else you want to add in like 10 seconds?
So just do it. Just do
I
it.
like
Don't
that.
overthink it. Just do it. And the things that you'll gain are immeasurable. I know it's more than 10 seconds, but I'm going to keep going. It's like explaining to a new parent what it's going to be like when they take this baby home for the first time. Like, it's funny to me. They have no idea what they're in for. But I'll say switch. If you really switch and commit to a plant-based diet and lifestyle, it's the same feeling. Your life will be better in so many ways, but there's no way that I can explain it to you or help you understand that. I just want you to do it and experience it for yourself. And I'm pretty confident that when people actually do that, they stay. And it
Yeah.
sticks a long time.
That's a super powerful analogy, for real. It's
Thanks.
awesome.
Well, I hope it helps.
Anthony, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. I know it's going to help so many people, combat the whole yo-yo effect. And I really think this has to be a diet or a lifestyle instead of a diet. And I can't thank you enough for being here. So
It is. Well, I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you smashing all these excuses for people. It's one of my favorite places to send people when they're talking about starting and all the reasons why they couldn't do that themselves. I mean, it's sad. It's the first thing they hear. I'm like, go listen to the excuse smashers. None of them are valid anymore.
yeah, and we're definitely going to have to get you on here for raising kids plant-based, because I want to get an episode B for that. So I look forward
Do
to
it.
doing that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Tim.
All right, man. Have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.
I'm so proud to call him friend. I'm so glad we connected. He's, his family's awesome, and we get along great. We have so much in common. It's so I'm so grateful I can call him friend. And he's a wealth of information because he's got so much experience with this. And to think that he's been doing this over a decade. His weight, fluctuates 5 to 10 pounds, and he's got it. He's got it figured out. And, I was thinking, as we were finishing up, I'm like, maybe the problem isn't really the whole idea of the diet. It's just the perception of what a diet is. A diet is temporary, and a lifestyle's not. But the problem is, you can't tell someone, yeah, I'm going on a lifestyle change. Like, it doesn't happen like that. And I think that's really the root of what this problem is. You're setting yourself up to fail when you go on a diet. But the flip side of that is, how do you wake up one day and say, I want to change my lifestyle? Yeah, that's overwhelming. And the reason why it's overwhelming is like what Anthony said, you're looking out to the future. And true lifestyle change comes from the next decision you make. That's a lot to wrap your brain around, but the idea is that it's not a decision. It's a decision after decision after decision, and that string of decisions turns into a lifestyle. And maybe without you even realizing that you change your life. So maybe what we need to do is reframe the whole diet idea, and maybe even get the word lifestyle change out of the whole equation, because it's just so daunting. It's so big. Maybe what we need to do is just worry about what our next meal is and how healthy it is. And so, at the end of the day, the bottom line is this. When someone tells you that diets are temporary and you might lose weight for a little bit, but you're going to gain all the weight back, you send them right over to Anthony, because with Anthony, the whole yo-yo diet thing, well, you could clearly see that it's